So all perspective is kind of an illusion to give the idea of three-dimensional form. So since we're drawing on a flat surface, we can't actually make something three-dimensional, but we can give something the appearance of 3 dimensions. And using perspective is the way to kind of give an illusion of that. So I'm going to go over linear perspective, and this is linear 1-point perspective. So linear perspective is any sort of perspective that involves straight lines. So you'll see it in cities, in houses, buildings, basically anything with man-made objects, roads. You'll get an idea of it too with like rivers flowing off into the distance, anything like that. But we can use 1-point or linear perspective also to figure out how we're going to be looking at non-straight line objects. But we'll get into that later. So just the general idea of 1-point perspective, it's all based around this. So this is the horizon line. Otherwise known as your eye level. Okay, so this is where your eye level is. Or where the camera is if you're using a camera to create that imagery. So 1-point perspective is going to have a single vanishing point right there in the middle. So this is the vanishing point. So all parallel lines will converge to that. So 1-point perspective is when you're looking at a cube, and rather than looking at the edge of a cube, you're looking straight on at the front plane of a cube. So this one would be 2 points, so that's not, we'll do that one next, but this is 1 point. So you're looking at that flat, straight edge of the cube. So then these come down and converge to a single vanishing point, because when you're looking in a cube, all those edges are parallel. So these two edges are parallel, and they converge to a single vanishing point. Okay. So I usually like to just put in some lines that go or radiate out from that vanishing point. This can help me to place in different objects in there. Oops. I'm just using my line tool here to do that. There we go. This is a little easier. Alright, so once you start to see these lines radiating outwards, you can kind of see how this will help you to place in objects. So we're just going to place in some basic cubes here. So this horizon line slash eye level, you always want to be aware of that, because that will help you to determine, you basically just want to know if you're looking up or down on an object. So let's just place a cube in here. So again, looking at the front plane of a cube, the front plane. So any cubes or objects that are that in this particular scene where you're looking at that front plane, they will all have the same vanishing point. So these edges will go down to the vanishing point. And then you just cut off that cube, decide how long you want it to be. So we'll cut it off there and there. So now we have a nice cube type shape in perspective. So this one obviously is above our eye level and above the horizon line, so that means we see this underside of it. So we're going to see what's under that because we're looking up on that. We might also have a cube here that is at our eye level. So if something's at our eye level, we're not going to see the top or the bottom of it. So we will still get those edges or those lines going off to the distant or the vanishing point. And then we decide how long we want that to be. There we go. But we're not going to see the top or the bottom. And again, then when you come down here and you put something below the horizon line, now rather than seeing the bottom of that, you are now going to see the top of this. Okay. I have one that's outside of the frame here, but now all these cubes exist in the same space, and they all have a feeling of three-dimensionality. All right. So it's always good just to practice this before you get into drawing actual things. Just practice it with very simple kind of block shapes. Okay. Let's look at a actual example here. So 1-point perspective you will use lots of times if you're drawing inside of a room, inside or looking down a street, looking down a hallway. I'll show you some actual examples here in a sec too. So let's just do the inside of a room here. So we'll get that horizon line in there. Now let's say we want kind of a lower angle. So we want our eye level a little bit lower. So when I do this, and I'm going to draw this back wall of the room, now I have this horizon line overlapping down here in the lower section of this wall. So this wall we can, let's put, like a window on here. And we're imagining kind of we're taking a picture of this, and then the vanishing point will be about right there. I'm going to throw in some of those radiating lines again. Let's do it on its own layer so I can turn them off later. I like to throw these in there because it's easier when I place the object in later on. I don't always need to draw those lines that are going to the vanishing point. I can kind of just follow these ones I have already. All right. Now we can. Now the corners of the room need to go to the vanishing point, and I can kind of really just follow, stay in between those different lines that I've created. All right, now we can place some other object there. So we're staring flat at that back wall, so it's easy to place in windows or anything that's on this back wall because they're just going to be here. Let's put a little like picture frame up here. So those are easy, but it's once you start adding other stuff in there, you want to make it feel three-dimensional. So let's put like a little bookshelf here in this corner. So I'm going to draw the yeah, we'll have it up against that back wall. So I'm going to just draw the front plane of that bookshelf. So now the edge of the bookshelf is going to be right here. So these edges of it will go to the vanishing point. Okay. What else could we could add a little table in right here. So for that table, I'm going to just draw it as a cube. Place that in there. Let's say we want like a light hanging down from the ceiling. So if it hangs down from here, we can add this in as a little cube as well. And maybe we have, what else should we put over here? Let's just put a big cube and we'll like change it into a chair. So once you kind of get these, I place in these objects as just simple cubes. And then later on, so now we can come back into here and add this a little darker and start to make this actually into a table over here. So this is probably when it would be good to get some reference, see what that table is going to actually look like. What type of room is this? Is it from the past? Is it a present thing? Current styles. You can put, a little vase of flowers on here. And then what's this one? This one's a bookshelf here. So we can place in our books. again, maybe we got some little storytelling stuff sitting on top of there. Oh, let's put another window on this wall here. That's a good one. So all this line is parallel. Tops of this is parallel. Top of this cube is parallel. So all of the tops of this window are also going to be parallel. And this is parallel. So they're all going to that vanishing point. Okay, and some people get very, very precise with this perspective. Really, as long as it has kind of that feeling of 3 dimensions, as long as it has, it looks like all these things exist in the same space. Don't worry about it being too exactly perfect. I just want it to feel 3-dimensional. Again, idea of that. Now we got our chair in there, a little pillow. Put a little table beside it. Okay. Let's change this into like a round little lamp hanging from the ceiling. Once you kind of have those major shapes in there, now you can go in and do, you know, more of those interesting details things. What else may be against this wall? A little table or something. Let's just put a little stand, like holding up a plant. A little vase. And then if we put like a carpet down here, we have that edge of the carpet, then these edges will go to the vanishing point as well. All right, so that's kind of what it will look like without those radiating lines. And now we have a room that feels 3-dimensional, feels like it exists in a real space. And everything kind of feels accurate and 3-dimensional in here. Let's just look at 2 photographs so we can kind of see this in reality. So here is just looking down a street. So you can always kind of start to find your vanishing point from a photograph by tracing over these lines and seeing where they all intersect. And using cameras, it's a little trickier because, you know, the lens will warp things. So depending on what sort of camera it's using, you might get some curves with those lines. So there about is our vanishing point. And then our vanishing point is about right here. And then so that means the eye level, the horizon line. So whoever's taking this picture is up a little bit higher than those cars. Okay. So all these lines again come down to that vanishing point. Okay. So that's an exterior version. Here is an interior. So this one has a higher horizon line. So let's see where these lead to. So someone again is kind of holding up the camera, probably above a person's head. So as you can see, this vanishing point now is about here. So that horizon line is kind of like at the top of that doorway, that way back there. So that's a pretty high horizon line. Probably just a little bit higher than an average person, but you can get an idea and see all those converging lines there. So it is helpful. The best way to study this and practice this is go find 1-point perspective in real life. So looking down a hallway, looking down a road, and try and draw it yourself. And translating a 3-dimensional real version of this into a flat 2-dimensional drawing using perspective.